Today let's talk paint removal. There's several different options. I want to go through them and then I'll give you some examples. First one is your orbital sander. This is a cordless one that I like, this DeWalt cordless sander with 60 grit or 40 grit sandpaper. Works pretty good. This is called a flap disc. This one's actually used, but this one's a 60 grit flat disc. Flat discs, I have noticed, so far anyway, name brand seems to work a little bit better, have a little bit more longevity. This flap disc is just little pieces of sandpaper that are arranged on this disc. And then you put that, just like you would your cutting blade or your grinding wheel, on this grinder, and this thing will spin at like 1800 I don't know if it's RPM or something like that, and it will knock off some paint, as you'll see. Another option is this cup brush. You can put this on your grinder as well. You would remove that washer and screw this directly onto the shaft, and that would allow you, this uses a bunch of little pieces of wire to scruff off the paint. So those are your in-house options. There's also chemicals you could try, different things like that, paint strippers you could try. To me, those kind of get in the realm of a little bit more dangerous, but maybe not. I've never even messed with them, to be honest with you. So sander, cut brush, flat disc on your angle grinder, those are the options that I like. And actually, and then there's another option, which is find a local sandblaster, okay? So you're thinking, sandblaster, oh my goodness, now we're talking paying somebody else to do it. I thought the same thing. I originally found one that was prohibitively expensive, and then with some looking, I found an individual that kind of has his own thing going on and does great work, and it's a little bit more cost effective to do that, and it saves a ton of labor. So anyway, that's your options. Now let's see them in action. Okay, let's check it out. Let's strip some paint. Okay, so for this, you do want to wear a dust mask, or you could also wear your normal respirator, half-face respirator, with a P100 filter on there. Will keep all the dust out. So be sure and wear your PPE and gloves, of course. All right, this little DeWalt orbital sander, I put links to everything that I use down below. You can use your preference. So we're going to use this 40 grit. If you happen to have these pads laying around and you don't know what it is, look on the back, it'll say 40. So you want to make sure these holes line up with these holes, because there's essentially a built-in vacuum system that will suck as much dust as possible into this little bag. Okay, it just helps keep the dust down. You don't have to get some with holes, but it just makes life easier whenever you don't have to worry about the dust. It can be kind of tricky to line that up. It's just got Velcro on the back, so you just want to get it as close as possible to get as many of those holes covered as possible. See all those holes? You can see them. And then you can adjust your speed on here. You just get a feel for it. And then now I'm going to start this up, put my dust mask on, start this up, and show you guys. an example. As you see here, this will have a bunch of dust down in there that it's captured. So it's a little less dusty. And so you can see there's your original paint was kind of like a tan color. And then this was your red primer that they used back then. And then you got your bare metal. So you can it'll take a while, you know, it just takes a little bit. It just takes time consuming. It's not really labor intensive as far as, it'll wear you out as far as the vibration and the heaviness of it, especially when you go up a vertical panel. So that's a pretty good example of what your sander will do. All right, now let's look at another option. All right, here we're going to check out this cup brush. All right, it's probably my least favorite option. I tried it out in the early days just to see what I could do. We're going to take this wheel off. That's our cutting blade, and then you screw this directly onto that. You can, as long as you got gloves on, it's not going to hurt you, and you can kind of cinch it down hand tight. You can also put a wrench on there if you wanted to. So let's check this out. All right, this is your cup brush on the grinder. You'll notice one big difference is dust. Anytime you're using the grinder, you get a lot more dust because it doesn't have that internal vacuum and bag system. As you can see, it does remove paint faster than the orbital sander, but it struggles to get on this old primer. It struggles to get down to bare metal as well as the orbital sander did. It'll get there. It's just better for knocking off the first layer or two of paint. That primer's bonded pretty well with the surface, so it doesn't dig in as good. So let's look at the other option, which is the flap disc. All right, so this flap disc, like I told you, it's essentially just pieces of sandpaper. All right, it's got the same setup, so you just put it right on, just like you would your cutting blade or grinder wheel. All right, it's on there. Now this has been the method I've used on several trailers and my favorite method to do it myself. It is also the most dusty method to do it yourself. However, it gets the job done great. look at the amount of area that we just covered compared to our other methods. All right, this thing, and this is an old wheel. I've used this on another trailer. That wheel could probably actually be replaced. When you get a brand new flap disc wheel on there, that thing will eat and eat and eat. So as you can see, there are a couple times you'll see some sparks start flying, and you got to be careful with your pressure, because this will start to gouge the metal a little bit, and then you'll get waves in your metal from your pattern. It's nothing that you can't fix and remedy with with your primer and paint, right? You won't even be able to notice it really, but it's just something to be conscious of, is this will dig in there and leave you kind of a pattern. So it's a give or take, it's a balance there. This is my personal favorite for doing it myself, is a flap disc. 40 grit, 60 grit. I use 60 usually. 40 tends to eat into the metal a little bit more. But that's the way you do it. So that's the way you do it, guys. It's really personal preference. This grinder with the flap disc is my personal favorite, like I said, for paint removal. This will also eat up rust. It'll eat up and whatever you want to get down to a good paintable surface and primable surface. Okay, so it's all personal preference. I know the orbital sander is a little more budget friendly. One of these is not as budget friendly, but it ain't gonna break your budget. All right, this flap disc will last a long time compared to, you're gonna have to keep changing out your sanding pads on your sander, right? The cut brush will last a while. There's also a wire wheel option you could experiment with that fits on the grinder as well. So it's all comes down to personal preference. I've done a lot of trailers with this though. Like I said, there's also chemical options, which I tend to stay away from. And then there's also the method that I'm going to use to finish this trailer today, which is the most expensive option, but the less labor intensive, and that's to let somebody else do the labor. And that is going to be a sandblaster, right? I'm going to take it to a gentleman and we're going to get it sandblasted. So best of luck to you. Whichever direction you decide to go, you can be like me, and I started out with the sander, went with the cut brush, went with the wire wheel, then ended up with a grinder, right? If you're into exploring your options, you can say, okay, what's the best one? I actually just went out and bought all of them and then just saw what fit best. I knew I was going to need a grinder for other things, so might as well have the grinder and just get the cut brush, wire wheel, and flap disc accessories for it. And that way you've got them and you can give them a shot. And I wound up, like I said, gravitating and enjoying and liking the flap disc the best. The downside is the dust. The dust gets everywhere. Get you a dust mask, preferably one with a vent so that your face isn't sweating all day long. Or a half-face respirator with the P100. That's P100 filter on there. That's what you're going to look for on the filter. It's the replaceable filters, P100. Keep all your dust out. So anyway, have fun working on your own and enjoy the results. And it really, when you take this paint off, this old paint that's been on here for 20, 40, 60 years, it's great to see that blank canvas that you get to work with. So enjoy, and I want to see some results.